Hi students, welcome to the science class. In last session, under the chapter of natural resources, we studied about some of the important natural resources which are present on the earth's surface. That is nothing but the one is air, second one is water, and also we discussed about due to the human activities how air will be polluted, how water will be polluted, and also another one important natural resource which we studied in last session, that is nothing but the soil. We studied about how soil is formed and how soil will be corroded. That will be studied in the last session. In today's session we are going to discuss biogeochemicals. What are biogeochemicals? What is biogeochemical cycle? And under this we studied about the water cycle, the oxygen cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. See here, on the earth's surface we have some of the chemicals which are continuously cycled by the atmosphere, and they are utilized by the living organisms, and also then they goes back to the atmosphere, and then again they can be utilized by the living organisms. The continuous supply of that minerals which are present, the continuous supply of that chemicals which are present on the earth's surface will be continuously goes on. So what are that chemicals? So some of the chemicals, some of the gases which we are going to see. For example, I am giving here the oxygen. The oxygen, it is utilized by all the living organisms, that can be absorbed by the atmosphere. The oxygen will be present in the air, and that air will be utilized for the respiration process. After onwards, the using in the respiration process, that will be utilized. After onwards, the carbon dioxide will be released by the human beings or the living organisms, and that again that oxygen will be goes through the atmosphere. So continuous cycling of the some of the chemicals are going to be seen in the atmosphere. The flow of substances from the non-living to living back to the non-living is called as a cycling of the substances. See here, the flow of the substances from the non-living to the living back to the non-living, it is called as a cycling of the substances. The flow of the substances, I am taking one example here, that is nothing but the oxygen. Oxygen comes from the non-living, it is a non-living substance that can be flowed from that can be absorbed by the living organisms, that is living things, by the plants, by the living organisms. Again that can be get released to the atmosphere in the plants during the photosynthesis, and during the animals in the respiration process as a carbon dioxide, isn't it? So such a type flow of the chemicals by the non-living things, by the non-living things to the living things, and living things to the again back to the non-living things, that is known as the cycling of the substances. But the cycling of the chemical elements like a carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus, sulfurous, and water. So but the cycling of the chemical elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and water in the biosphere, it is called as a biogeochemical chemical cycle. See here, the cycling of the chemicals like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, then phosphorus, and water in the biosphere, that is called as a biogeochemical cycle, and these chemicals are called as a biogeochemicals here. Why they are going to call it as a biogeochemicals? Because they are utilized by the biological organisms, so living organisms, and the cycle is going to be run in the biosphere. Therefore these are called it as a biogeochemicals, and the process of cycling, this cycling, it is called it as a biogeochemical cycle. Under the biogeochemical cycle we studied some of the chemical cycles under this. That is, first I am taking water cycle here. So the water cycle, the whole process of in which water evaporates and falls on the land as a rain and later flows back into the sea via rivers, is known as the water cycle. You already know that the evaporation and condensation of the water, isn't it? So the water which is present in the sea, that can be evaporated due to the heat produced by the sunlight, and that the water vapors which comes from the sea, that these are converted in the condensation process and converted into a clouds, and clouds brings the rain here. So the water which is present in the sea, that will be evaporated due to the evaporation process and condensed, and then get the rain. The water which comes from the rain, that will be collected by the rivers, and that water which is present in the river again goes to the sea here. So the continuous flow of this water, it is known as a water cycle. The whole process in which water evaporates and falls on the land as the rain, and later flows back into the sea via rivers, that is known as a water cycle. So water will be evaporated in a many ways. I am taking first one, it is a evaporation, simple evaporation. The evaporation due to the sunlight, the large amount of the water will be evaporated due to the heat produced by the sun in the seas and rivers, in the ponds. The water from the water bodies, the water where the water is present, that are called it as a water bodies here. So some amount of the water will be evaporated due to the heat produced by the sunlight. And second one here, the water will be evaporated from the animal surface body. See, some amount of the water will be evaporated by the animal's body during the walking, during the running, isn't it? The sweat will become so like that. The water will be evaporated from the living organism's body. And third one, it is the plants are going to be evaporate the water during the process of transpiration. So as we know already, the transpiration, it is one of the process that will be done in the plants. So during the transpiration, the plants are going to be remove the water, excess of water present in the plants using the stomata, isn't it? So that water vapors are also goes towards the atmosphere, and the evaporation and condensation of water leads to the rain here. So this all evaporated water will be condensed, and that forms rain water here. So evaporation, the clouds are not only made by the evaporated water which is present in the sea, but the clouds are also include the water from all the evaporation by the plants, evaporation by the human bodies or the living organism bodies, and also by the transpiration process. So the water which is present in the sea, that will be evaporated, the water which is present on the land, that will be evaporated and condensed, and again that will be fall as a rain, and after onwards that water will be again evaporated, again condensed, again the clouds will form, again rain will become. So this is the continuous cycle, first geochemical cycle which we studied, that is nothing but the water cycle. So second cycle in the biogeochemicals, I am considering second biogeochemical, that is nothing but the oxygen cycle here. So oxygen is another one element which is present in the air, the most important element which is present in the air, that will be utilized by the living organisms in the respiration process. Oxygen, it is present in the air about 21%, and the cycling process by which oxygen element is circulated continuously through the living and non-living components of the biosphere constitute oxygen cycle. So the cycling process by which the oxygen element is circulated continuously, the cycling process in which the oxygen element circulated continuously from the non-living, through the living and non-living materials of the biosphere constitute oxygen cycle. So how the oxygen will be recirculated in the atmosphere, that will be seen now. In the respiration process, all the living organisms include the plants, they are going to respire the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere, and then in the respiration process all the living organisms, they are going to release carbon dioxide here, isn't it? They are going to release carbon dioxide, and also some of the dead decaying organisms, that the decayed body which is present in the earth surface, they also utilizes the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere, and they releases water here. And the carbon dioxide and water which is released from the dead decayed body and the animals, that will be utilized by the plant in the process called photosynthesis. In the process photosynthesis, plants are going to utilize the carbon dioxide produced by the animals and also water produced by the decaying materials, and in photosynthesis the plants are going to release oxygen, and also they form the one of the most important component, that is nothing but the food, that is called it here as a organic molecule, that is nothing but C6H12O6, that is called it as a glucose. In the photosynthesis process, the plants are going to be utilizes carbon dioxide, water, and thus in the presence of sunlight they convert this material into food particle and they releases oxygen, that again the oxygen will be released to the atmosphere. The food particles are again consumed by the animals, and again in the respiration process they are going to utilize that sugar molecules, and also they absorb the oxygen from the environment, again they are going to release carbon dioxide, and that decaying material releases water, then again that will be utilized by the plants during the photosynthesis, again the oxygen will be recycled here. This is all about the oxygen cycle, how the oxygen will be recirculated. First, the living organisms or the animals are going to utilize the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere during the process of respiration. So during the process of respiration they absorb the oxygen and releases the carbon dioxide, and also some of the decaying materials which are present on the earth's surface, they utilizes the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere and they releases some amount of the water. That water and carbon dioxide are utilized by the plants during the process of photosynthesis. In the presence of sunlight they releases oxygen to the atmosphere and they give the another one again chemical material, that is nothing but organic molecules, that will be called it as a food, and that food will be utilized by the animals. The process will be continuous here. So this is all about the oxygen cycle. Now students, let's see another one biogeochemical, that is nothing but the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle, it is nothing but the sequence of a carbon that can be get utilized by the living organisms which are present on the surface, and that carbon again will be released to the back to the atmosphere. That sequence of cycling of the carbon from the living beings to the atmosphere, that is called it as a carbon cycle. How the carbon will be recycled in the atmosphere, that will be studied now. The carbon it is present in the atmosphere, it is about 0.03 to 0.5% of the carbon it is present in the atmosphere. The atmospheric carbon that will be utilized by the plants during the photosynthesis, the atmospheric carbon dioxide that will be utilized by the plants during the photosynthesis, and that will be decomposed, that will be utilized in the photosynthesis, and that can be get converted into food materials. The food materials also has the food materials like carbohydrates, fats, that also contains a carbon here, and also the carbon dioxide that will be released during the respiration. Why? Because the air which is present in the atmosphere, that will be utilized by the living organisms, and during the respiration process the carbon dioxide will be released. But after some times these animals or the plants decompose, again when they are decomposed, the body of the animals, they are going to decompose, they are going to dead, they releases the carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But after some times the animal dead bodies which are buried under the soil, that can be get converted into a fossil fuels. That fossil fuels also has the large amount of the carbon. So on the combustion of the fossil fuels, the carbon dioxide again released to the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide, it is not only present in the atmosphere, but also it is present in the ocean as a calcium carbonate. So that can be utilized by the animals which are present in the oceans. So therefore how the carbon will be recycled here, that will be studied under the carbon cycle. Once again I am repeating here, the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, that will be get utilized by the plants and the animal during the respiration process, and the carbon dioxide that is utilized by the plant in the photosynthesis process, they can going to release the oxygen, and they may made the food material that is called it as a glucose. The food materials that will be formed by the process of photosynthesis, that includes carbohydrates, proteins, fats, etc. These are all materials includes carbon material here, that will be consumed by the animals, and during the respiration process these food materials will be break down and the carbon dioxide will be released in the process of respiration. So therefore carbon dioxide again back to be released to the atmosphere, and the animals which are consumed the carbon dioxide as in the food material, if they go dead, then what happens? In the decomposition process the carbon dioxide will be released to the soil, and also if the organisms are buried under the soil, what happens? After some times these living organisms are converted into fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are nothing but the diesel, petrol and the gases. These are the main carbon materials. When they are go on combustion, they can release the carbon dioxide, and again the carbon dioxide will be released to the atmosphere. The continuous circulation of the carbon dioxide will be formed here. So this is all about the another one most important biogeochemical cycle, that is nothing but the carbon cycle. The another one biogeochemical cycle that I am considering here, nitrogen cycle. So in our air we are going to see large amount of the nitrogen is present, that is nothing but the 78% of the nitrogen it is present in the atmosphere. But the animals are the living beings which are present on that surface. The animals and the plants are not able, they are not able to get the readily nitrogen from the atmosphere, but that nitrogen will be supplied for the plants and the animals by the some of the organisms, from some of the microorganisms that are called it as a nitrogen fixers here. So one of the microorganism that is called it as one of the bacteria, rhizobium, which fixes the atmospheric nitrogen, that will be converts that atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, that will be provided to the plants, and that can be utilized by the plants. So by the help of the plants, by eating the food which is present, which is developed on the plant, we are going to get the nitrogen here, because all the living organisms, that is all the animals and the plants which are living on the earth surface, they doesn't has the ability to acquire the nitrogen which is present on the atmosphere, but that can be done, that can be provided, that can be utilized with the help of the some of the nitrogen fixers which are present on the earth surface, that are nothing but rhizobium. It is one of the bacteria which fixes the nitrogen, which utilize the nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere and converts into the ammonia. That ammonia will be utilized by the plants, and the process it is called it as ammonification here. During the protoplasm, what happens? The sum of the nitrogen fixers, some of the nitrogen fixers utilizes the nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere. In the protoplasm, in the green plants, they are going to absorb the nitrogen by the nitrogen fixers called the rhizobium, and that absorbed nitrogen after onwards ammonification, that will be get converted into ammonia, and that ammonia will again utilized by the animals. And also after the protoplasm, that nitrogenous compounds are utilized by the animals with the help of by taking the food materials from the plants here, and after that nitrogen will be releases towards the earth surface with the help of some of the activities from some of the decompositions here. That process it is known as the ammonification here, and also some amount of the nitrogen that will be converted, that will be get by the help of the some of the things which are happening in the atmosphere or on the earth surface, that is nothing but the lightning. Due to the lightning process, the nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere, that will be nitrificated. That is during the nitrification, when the lightning happens, nitrification happens, the atmospheric nitrogen that will be get converted into the ammonia with the help of the lightning process. So the atmospheric nitrogen will be fixed by the help of the lightning here, and again that nitrates are utilized by the the nitrogen fixers and that can be provided to the plants. Again, plants are going to be provided, they are utilized to make the food materials. Again, that food materials that will be utilized by the animals which are present on the earth surface, and the continuous circulation of the nitrogen will be done here. So you have to remember the atmospheric nitrogen, it doesn't utilized by the animals and the plants directly, but they are going to utilize with the help of the some of the nitrogen fixers that are called it as the bacteria. One of the bacteria which is helpful for the nitrogen fixing, it is nothing but the rhizobium. Rhizobium absorbs the atmospheric nitrogen and that converts into the ammonia that will be utilized by the in the process with the help of the protoplasm which is present in the green plants. So that process of conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into the ammonia, that is called it as a nitrification here. So after nitrification, the plants, they are going to utilize the nitrogen and they use that nitrogen for the purpose of photosynthesis and they produce the food here. So how the nitrogen cycle will be runs, again that food material will be utilized by the animals and the plants, and again the nitrogen will be converted into the nitrates, and then again the plants are going to get the nitrogen by the atmosphere with the help of the nitrogen fixers. This is all about the nitrogen cycle. What is nitrogen cycle here? The sequence in which nitrogen will be recycled by the atmosphere to the living organisms and by the living organisms to the atmosphere, that is known as the nitrogen cycle. And this is all about some of the biogeochemicals which they are recycled in the atmosphere. So in today's session we discussed under the biogeochemicals, we discussed water cycle, we discussed oxygen cycle, we discussed about carbon cycle, and also we discussed about nitrogen cycle. In these four cycles, one cycle it is in these four cycles, any one cycle will be asked in your examination for 3 to 4 marks question. You have to practice all these cycles. So, and this completes your another one most important lesson, that is nothing but the natural resources. In the next session we are going to continue your next lesson.